Good morning, Shellbrook. So, here we are. We'll just take a quick look. I was at about 32,000 on the hay last night, so we're still there. So it's possible this might drag along enough that having seeds in that crampy will be less concerning, but we'll find out later. So, per our new process with precision farming that we've just been starting the last few years, it is now time to take care of the weeds in the crop now that it's the day after our planting. So let me connect up my sprayer. And we'll get ourselves, whoops, that tree is still there. Gotten a little reversed, but we'll get ourselves going. I'm going to go ahead and, just for tracking, top off the herbicide. Makes things a little bit easier. So, starting pretty much right after I signed into the server, so you can see a lot of refreshing going on here. So, just makes it a little bit more likely that we'll have some lag here and there, but should be okay. But you can see we've got some spots of weeds here. So, go ahead and get this unfolded. Did a bad job of getting myself ready with GPS with my planter, so let me change that with my sprayer. I don't know, looks like maybe we don't have a lot more, but it's definitely seems a bit more aggressive than I recall when we sprayed before. So let me start this up here. And again, with the See and Spray, it should be more focused. With the sun the way it is, it may just be a challenge to see things here. Whoops. Get myself far enough over so that I'm hanging off the edge of the field and that I'm getting everything. But we started at 3360. You can see we've just used 4 liters, so this does, well, visually it's a little bit more difficult to tell. This does seem to be operating as expected. So unlike my crop sensor that I use on my other tractor for the nitrogen detection, which has to be used to be effective according to the documentation during daylight. And I know last night when I was planting, I had tried to turn it on and it just kept blinking. Crop sensor must be used in daylight in the center of my screen, so I just turned it off because obviously it wasn't helping any. But I didn't want to wait and have some of the field planted at a certain time unless I really needed to. And right now, I don't think I'm seeing results that show that I need to. So let me get to the end of the row here, or end of the field, since I'm free driving. Given the angle of this, I'm not really at the end of a row per se, because I'm just kind of going along the field, making sure I'm hanging over the edge. Alright, So I just need to figure out where this is going to take me. I'm thinking this will be okay. I guess we'll find out, right? Just depends how much everything moves over, because we're not quite to the tractor, so that's a good sign. So if I go here, we are seeing a similar thing. Those really stones, or is that? I don't understand. Okay. I don't know what these red stripes are. Are they things that need plowing? They are. Very interesting. Oh, maybe they just, I see, they haven't refreshed. Okay, so they were just the striping on the map. Just because it wasn't consistent behind there, it was throwing me a bit. But glad that isn't that way. I'm just trying to see if I can see the, there we go. So we can see the sprayer as it operates. I found you've got to have the light kind of shining off the spray on the correct side. So if you're facing the other way, because obviously here we see large patches, it's a lot more challenging to see things being sprayed. We just see the weeds changing, but clearly we're spraying, as you can see. So it's kind of how this is modeled. Now I got that one. We'll see, because I think I might be a little tiny bit short here. Yeah, definitely. But we'll get this done. We'll come back and grab these few weeds that we see sitting there. But yeah, we're missing a good portion. Even some of that second grouping there came off. So once again, with the See and Spray technology, it should not waste any herbicide. So I'll just head back the other way, and that will get us the coverage that we need to just really have fully taken care of our weed problem. Alright, that should line me up. There we go. So, you know, even though I'm here, we're at 3313. And unless there's a little weed or two somewhere, now we'll see what happens in the grass here. I would think it's still going to try to sense. It looks like it's working as I would expect. Now that we're over some of the field, I'm less concerned about just random spraying. But that, I think, gets us most of the way. You know, and it took 1 liter to just touch things up there, so pretty nice how that worked out. And go ahead, just as I've started to with everything, with the neighbor having that field and it actively being worked next door, I will get some headlands or some borders here. I don't know if they're called headlands if you don't go all the way around. I mean, I suppose in theory they are. You just create headlands where you need them, but it doesn't make them any less headlands. Alright, so now, depending on what crop they're planting next door, it's not strange to see what we're seeing here. Because you know, your question might be, well, I thought you said they were actively working the field, but clearly nothing's planted. But keep in mind, as I mentioned yesterday in my planting episode, I made the decision to plant what I did because the other crops, which were sunflowers, is what I was thinking of doing. But I would have finally been able to plant those today, and I just needed a quick job today, and really just had the 2 days, yesterday and today, to deal with the springtime work. So I didn't want to lose that window because of the crop, because doing today and tomorrow would be more challenging. So I definitely did not want to head that route. But as spring is dawning here on Misty Brook, our server, trees are starting to fill out a bit. Everything is just looking more alive. Alright, so there we go, 3311, and obviously we're going to use a few liters here. Certainly, given this large patch of weeds that we're crossing, this is almost going to be as if we didn't have See and Spray. But I will say, given that I got through that with 8 liters, I still think that's far less usage than I would get with a traditional sprayer. And more importantly, you can see for our environmental score, it gives us the max for weed control, and you'll notice I have hit 100% for the first time ever in my farming history work. So I'm pretty proud of that. Whether I take advantage of it or not is going to be dependent on the market prices at the time we pull our crop out, and what I choose to do. I can certainly hold the crop for a bit, wait until spring, come back and give it a shot or something, and sell it maybe at a higher point. But the challenge is it's harder to determine if there's that kind of a price fluctuation on direct sell channels through the FSN website. So I suppose what I can do, if I remember, is once I'm done spraying here, I can go take a peek at what the going rates are now and try to keep that in mind when I am in the fall, and see if it makes sense to wait, because perhaps canola's 100 or 200 per liter higher now than it will be later. I don't know, because at harvest time, laws of supply and demand would seem to dictate that given that everyone's harvesting at harvest time, there's going to be a glut of canola, and therefore likely not able to command as high a price, because everybody's putting canola out there and there's a lot of it. So there's more than enough to meet the demand. But if I sell at a quieter time where it might be more constrained, the laws of economics tell me that I should be compensated at a higher level. Ooh, went a little further over than I expected. I can't really write it off to this sprayer is smaller than the previous one. I mean, it is. That's a reality, but I'm not that good at gauging it, and maybe it was because I was fully zoomed in. I couldn't really see past the end. Out here at this point, I think I'm going to get a better view of things. But this is my work for today. Not really planning on doing much else. As I've said over the last year or so, as I've been working things, this is kind of trying to equalize to my new normal. Tomorrow we'll have some new baby calves, I believe is what it should be, because if I recall, yesterday we still had 2 months, so obviously this will just be one day's progression. So I certainly will, I'm sure, take a peek at some point over the next few days if there's something of note that is worth actually recording and showing you, I will do that. Otherwise, I'm sure it'll just become part of the chat during the next work video, which will likely be harvest unless something changes dramatically, but not really expecting any of that. My biggest piece, I guess, would be if I want to do any grass work in the downtime this year, but I'm thinking I might just sit back and relax and let another year go by, because I think I've got plenty of stuff to keep myself going, probably for well more than this year, but I don't want to get out of the habit, because it was a bit much to do the massive amount of grass work I did to get everything topped off. So I think I would like it to be a little bit more reasonable. You know, maybe do some of the field in grass, turn some of it into hay. Obviously, straw operates separately. You know, that'll just be at a point when I think I need some. And once again, I think what I'll be doing is just dropping straw swath for a bit. I won't likely do it for the whole field, because I don't need that much. You know, the change might come if there's a day I decide I'm gonna sell the straw or something. You know, who knows? That might happen. But right now, you know, I'm doing pretty well. I did have a little bit. I've got a ticket out with FSN. I'm thinking I got shorted about $30,000 or $40,000 in the transfer, because I had $650,000 and then $234,000, if I'm recalling my numbers correctly. So that should be $884,000, and I got $845,000 and change added to my account back in January here on the farm. So I've sent my screen evidence, and they should have obviously what my transfers are, because those just sit in the system, and I'm waiting to hear back, but that can take up to 3 days just to get an initial response. And typically what happens is you get a response that it's been assigned to this group, and then that group still has 72 hours to respond again. So it's pretty common, and the expectation I've got is usually I should expect at least a week before anything I'm asking about or put a ticket out for gets fully addressed. So we might see our balance go up a little bit. And so I guess, yes, part of what I need to figure out, I had talked about this yesterday but forgotten about it, is I tested a small BGA. I definitely want to test the high-end BGA, similar to what I did with the fermenting silo, just to see what it takes, because if I can maximize my production, because basically what it appears is that a BGA will produce, I guess, some propane and some electricity or something, because they basically have gas canisters, what look like LP gas canisters is what I would call them, and then what look like batteries. And neither of those are in the cell menu, so I can't verify the icons I'm seeing and kind of understand what they are. But I think that's what it is. And so you get, every hour you get some income, which obviously adds up for the day. And it looked like on the small BGA I can recoup my purchase price at the high end in probably 7 or 8 years, but it could be about a year with the large one. But I'm also thinking the amount of input material I'd need would be substantial, and the other catch-all on that is getting that high output basically requires you to be running the BGA on silage, and not on slurry only. So slurry has a much longer payback period. But I guess the thing I enjoyed with it was if I want to suddenly start making money pretty quickly, I can do so with silage, and the question would become more, how quick is my fermenting silo getting things together? Because again, to get 100,000 liters, I think it took 2 or 3 months to run through that and get that fermented, and that will be consumed in the BGA in much less time than that. And so obviously I'd be not able to keep that running at full capacity. So there'd be a little bit of an extension, but in either way, if I spent the over $1 million that it takes for that large BGA, I think I have a path forward. And so I just need to verify what the income levels really are of that, and just kind of take a peek and see. And what I may do then is kind of align it along the river, because I don't want to close myself off or make it more challenging. But the difficulty too is along the river it's not very flat. Obviously we've got a riverbank, and I wouldn't put it, probably off the field. I'd probably leave it on the field, but even that part of the field that we're starting to pass there, I think slopes a good amount, and so I'm just not sure. So that'll be certainly something I'll be thinking about, and may introduce, may not. So I'm basically trying to figure out, the dairy I'm almost certain is going to be done. I'm just waiting until, as I've mentioned, until I get my cattle up to a full barn so that my dairy production is at its max level. I may not wait until that last group of calves are actually producing milk before I do it. I may go ahead, just once. Whoops, I think I did it too early. I've got some weeds there. Yep, one just got knocked out. There's another one there, another one there. Just trying to want to be conscious of my supply and not overdo it, but I also should let the see and spray technology do its job and not worry about having things on. Like right now I've turned it on already, and I should just let it do its thing, as opposed to trying to time it, which is what I'm used to doing for many, many years here on Shellbrook. So I'm going to let this see and spray continue to do exactly that. But we've gotten everything up to date, and what's going on in my head, I've gotten it out to you. So I will see you next time.